Magnus Mito is the #1 climbing YouTuber in the world, and with his influence, it wouldn't be surprising to know he inspired thousands of people to start climbing. However, have you ever noticed that this might be a Magnus-specific effect? You don't find the same type of comments under Adam Under's videos, for example. While Adam talks about his relationship with nature, with the rock, and with climbing history in a very inspirational way, I will dare to say that he mostly motivates climbers rather than bringing new people into the sport. Why is it then that Magnus has this powerful effect? Sure, Magnus reaches many more people with his videos than Adam, but why is it that the YouTube algorithm targets the average person in the case of Magnus and climbers in the case of Adam? I will argue that the answer lies in the different types of motivation that they depict in their videos. Welcome back to Mindset Analysis. I'm Allegra Maguire, and today we will talk about the science of motivation applied to Magnus Midtbø. When we hear talk about motivation, the description is often that psyched mindset or an intrinsic enjoyment for an activity. It's that feeling when you get to your gym and everything has been reset, or when you go to a very cool crag.
I mean, it sounds really cheesy, I know. I just love climbing, I just love being in nature, I just love the feeling of feeling free. But it is like that, you know. I don't know, I like the whole lifestyle, I like traveling, I like climbing, I like trying hard.
And in the self-help industry, it's not uncommon to hear that self-discipline is what you need to overcome moments of lack of motivation. However, this is an incredibly reductive narrative of what motivation is.
I mean, most of all, I like the feeling of feeling really fit and strong. Like the feeling of like being able to climb anything.
In reality, there are different types of motivations, and not all of them are created equal. Motivation comes from the Latin verb moveo, to move, is anything that makes you initiate and sustain an activity. That is why, in psychology, the concept of using self-discipline to overcome lack of motivation doesn't make much sense. To be able to use self-discipline, you need motivation. The most influential theory of motivation, self-determination theory, takes into account these different types of motivation. The fathers of this theory, Edward Deci and Richard Ryan, describe a taxonomy of motivation that is posed on a continuum from amotivation to intrinsic motivation. We are driven by all these different types of motivation, to different degrees and at different times. Self-determination theory, or SDT, suggests that people are inherently motivated to pursue activities that satisfy their basic psychological needs for autonomy, competence, and relatedness. Autonomy refers to the sense of volition and self-endorsement in one's action. When individuals feel autonomous, they perceive themselves as the initiators and regulators of their behavior, rather than being controlled by external forces. Climbing is unusually autonomy supportive, as you're almost always the person who decides what kind of climbing you want to do, from intensity to style. Competence reflects an individual's desire to feel effective and capable in what they're trying to achieve. When people experience a sense of competence, they are more likely to be motivated to engage in activities that challenge and stretch their abilities. Finally, relatedness pertains to the fundamental need for social connection and a sense of belonging. When individuals perceive a supportive and caring social environment, the intrinsic motivation flourishes. And climbing has historically a very positive reputation for its warm and welcoming community. Studies have shown that the more people feel intrinsically motivated, the more probably they will stick with the activity, report higher levels of satisfaction, and have high performance levels. However, not only it's impossible to feel always intrinsically motivated,
You should make sure that I actually do those routes, because right now I'm like pretty close to just giving up.
it's also very unusual to discover a new activity and feel intrinsically motivated right from the start. In most cases, you start with an extrinsic type of motivation. External regulation occurs when individuals engage in an activity solely to obtain external rewards or avoid punishments. The behavior is primarily influenced by external factors and lack of genuine personal interest or enjoyment. For example, you might start climbing because you need to do some physical activity. Introjectional regulation refers to the behavior driven by internal pressure or expectations. Individuals engage in an activity to avoid guilt, anxiety, or to enhance their self-esteem. The motivation is more internal than external, but is still not entirely self-determined. For example, you might go to climbing to avoid feeling guilty about not taking care of your health. Identified regulation occurs when individuals value and recognize the importance of an activity and engage in it willingly, even though it may not be inherently enjoyable. The behavior is aligned with personal goals, values, and beliefs. The example for this case is you doing a proper warm-up routine or injury-preventing exercises so that you can continue climbing injury-free. Finally, integrative regulation involves engaging in the activity because it aligns with the person's sense of self and identity. The behavior is integrated with an individual's personal values, and they perceive it as essential for their overall well-being or identity. This is what Magnus is depicting most of the time. He is diligently training because he understands its importance in achieving in his mastery value and personal goals of being fit and strong. Of course, Magnus is also intrinsically motivated by climbing. He loves climbing and loves its lifestyle. However, he also loves training, although probably not intrinsically. In his videos, he shows what people struggle the most, being able to commit long-term to a goal. However, no matter how well you plan your goal setting, if your goals don't relate with what you consider important, it will be incredibly hard to stick with them. Magnus is very skilled at smoothly and flexibly transition between intrinsic and extrinsic motivation depending on what he needs at a given time. That's how he's managed to stay consistent and keep pushing his boundaries for a decade. It's a mental skill that can be developed, and I believe many viewers have unconsciously witnessed his impressive ability and found themselves inspired. I hope you found this video interesting. Did you know that Magnus is a bit of a perfectionist? Check out this video, and I will explain you the science that link perfectionism with performance and procrastination. I'll see you in the next video, and stay psyched.